everybody, and welcome to the Blue versus Green show. This is Miserable Monday because we are recording literally right after the Giants game against the Seahawks.
The debacle that was.
I don't know. Anyway,
it was a football game.
It was. I am your host and quarterback for this episode. This is Walt, and I am joined by these two guys, Jose and Gabe. Say hello.
What up?
What's up, y'all?
And again, if this is your first time watching us, please remember to hit that subscribe button if you like what you see. And if you've been here before, make sure you smash that notification button so then that way, whenever we have new episodes, you'll know. Let's get into it. There's no way to intro this. Gabe, how do you feel after this game?
I feel tired of defending Daniel Jones. However, I still have to defend Daniel Jones because he didn't even have stat-wise, he didn't even have that bad of a game if you look at the stats, but this is why stats don't always tell the truth. They don't tell the entire, game. If you look at the game, it was just an atrocious game all the way around. There's very, very little good to take away from the game. I do have a couple things that I think that were good, but literally just a couple. Okereke and Thibodeau. Thibodeau kind of started showing up, started making some plays. Okereke looked like he was doing his thing, making some good plays. But outside of that, everything else, was non-existent. And I don't understand how we can go now more than a decade and we still have not figured out how to play football from an offensive line standpoint. And
that's disappointing.
It's tiring. It is exhausting, and I am so over it. I actually wanted to start recording halfway through the game. I was like, you know what, why don't we stop? Let's get on the recording. But I have to, like a true New York football fan, it seems like, because I feel like I'm right there with you guys. I had to see every single snap, no matter how much it hurt.
Well, the interesting thing is that even going into, what was it, the fourth quarter, I believe?
Yeah.
It was 14-3, and you guys were driving and really
end of the third quarter, I believe.
End of the third quarter.
Right there at the end.
You're literally driving there to kind of make this a game. At 14-3, you were driving to score a touchdown and would have made it 14-10, but then you had that horrendous interception, which just flipped the score. I mean, it was a 14-point turnaround at that point. You went from 14-10 to 21-3, and basically at that point, that game really truly was over.
Yeah.
That was what was so damn agonizing, I think, about the game. Like, what
it was there.
What it really felt long about it was like how close the Giants were for most of the game too, in spite of the fact that Daniel Jones ran like 3 marathons trying to get away from the defense in that game. Like
11 sacks, right?
They were in it, like you said. Yeah, 11 sacks, 10 on Daniel Jones, and 1 on the wide receiver, Paris Campbell. So,
oh my gosh,
like they were sacking people other than the quarterback because of how bad this game was. But they were in that game, like you said, for so much of the game, and I really felt like they were going to pull out a drive. Daniel Jones was looking good. He was looking efficient. The offensive line was looking horrendous. But near the end of the third quarter, like I think Gabe, you mentioned it also, like when we were chatting during the game, like he was just frustrated and done, I think, at a certain point by the end of the game. Like, and his decision making like just went downhill on a couple of the sacks that were at the end of the game and a couple of the throws that he made at the end of the game. Like he started stepping up in the pocket a little bit too early on a couple, I think, and made some boneheaded throws.
Yeah. I think that this is like, I think it's a symptom, like, it's a symptom of the story of the game. I think I've never played football outside of like touch football out on the block over here in Brooklyn and the streets.
Never played tackle?
Outside of that, I can only imagine what it must feel like to be pressured the entire game, to be sacked so often. I think that a lot of the decision-making mistakes that came, from Daniel Jones came also from just the fear of being like sacked and not having time and just like, I need to make a play. And for the most part, he was efficient, but, it's almost like he needs to play perfect just to be even, because the rest of the team is playing so bad.
Yeah.
And if you consider the fact that every quarterback is going to make a couple bad plays. Mahomes, made a couple bad interception throws, you know, and it's like you're going to have those games, but you just wish that you didn't have those games at the same time that the rest of the team plays so bad. And it's one thing if it's one game, but this is the story of the season. And what can you evaluate when there's nothing to evaluate? The only thing that we can there's just no time. If there's more time for DJ to play, if there's more time for the receivers to try to get open, then you can evaluate, are the receivers doing a good job of getting open? Is Daniel Jones making good decisions? Is the defense, making plays and stuff like that? But there's just nothing to evaluate because there's never any time, even though in this game the Giants had far and away more time on the field, more play time than the Hawks. And I just don't. It's just the weirdest thing to look at the stat numbers and then see the result.
I think we were joking before that the reason why they were on the field so much is because Daniel needed time to get up from all those sacks, right?
Marathon. He ran a marathon.
Yeah, but listen, I think this goes a little bit further. I mean, coaching was horrendous in this game.
Yeah,
I think there's no way about it. The Michael Kafka didn't work. In terms of Wink Martindale, he was talking about missed tackles, and he was like, "Oh, you can chart them next time because it's not going to happen." There was missed tackles all over this game.
It's worse.
This was horrendous. How many
every
missed
game
tackles
is
there
getting
were.
worse. How on earth, like I was saying, what are you doing during the practice? It's like they play the game and then they forget about it. They must be going to practice and not looking at any film study, not trying to correct any mistakes.
Yeah, but some of that stuff is fundamental.
Like, hey, let's go play a game next week and see what happens.
Yeah, but like I said, some of that stuff is fundamental. I mean,
I agree.
Wrap tackles, you that's not something that you need to be coached at this level at this point.
At the NFL level,
That's something that you need to know already. And the fact that these that team was just running right through these tackles, that's something that is concerning for the Giants. The other thing that I kind of mentioned before to Jose before you got online was I think there is really you're really starting to see the lack of a wide receiver one on this team, and the fact that there's not that star that can elevate the passing game right here. And we thought that it was going to be Darren Waller. Darren Waller was targeted one time through 3 quarters. I mean, how in the world does that? He is clearly your best weapon on offense. If Saquon Barkley is not there, one target through 3 quarters.
I almost would say that I need to take a look. I need to almost go back and take a look. It's hard to digest the game and see like what Waller was doing, but I think that they were using Waller more to try to block.
That's not what you brought him for.
No, I understand that, but like I think that they were using him to block because the O-line is playing so bad.
Then you know what?
Cascading effect, right? So you try to get him to block so that you can try to give it to Campbell or Slayton or see what happens. But then you don't have the rest of the O-line's not doing any work either. So then Daniel Jones is having to get rid of the ball as soon as possible, and he just doesn't have like the right targets. Receivers don't have enough time to get open. Daniel Jones doesn't have enough time to figure out who he wants to throw it to, or if there is anybody to throw it to. Most of the time, he's having to like make the plays himself, running and picking up the first downs. And it shouldn't be that way. There should be design quarterback runs, to take advantage of
you can't run Jones more than he ran today,
But it's so bad, and I don't know what the answer is other than I really do put it all. I can't put it all on the coaches because the players are the ones playing, right? You're getting paid to make the plays. You have to make plays. But what, like if you take a look at how Dable was showing his frustration, throwing the Surface tablet to to the side of Daniel Jones after showing him something or whatever, maybe something that he saw, like, you missed this, you messed it up here. Okay, but where's Dable's, like, I would like to see that kind of reaction to your offensive line. I would like to see that kind of reaction to your defensive coordinator. I would like to see that reaction to your offensive coordinator. I would like to see some of that towards the rest of the team. Is Dable kind of holding the rest of the team accountable? And if he's not, then what is he doing as a head coach?
Yeah, and you know what? I think the thing that he was showing Jones, who's actually speaking on the podium right now, the thing that he was showing Jones was the fact that on that play with that 97-yard interception return, Waller was wide open in the back of the end zone. And I think that's what he was trying to show him, because when Paris Campbell came underneath, he brought the safety with him. And you saw kind of, Darren Waller getting behind the coverage. He was wide open. And I think that's the thing that kind of frustrated Dayball there. But you know what? Daniel Jones was pressured the entire night, and so he probably saw that. Not a good read for him, to be quite honest. Let's put it that way, But you can't really fault him for that, because he's been under pressure the entire night, you know what I'm saying? And he probably he probably didn't see Waller. Who knows? I don't know what was in Daniel Jones' mind. But you can't really scream on him on that, because guys miss reads. That's just the way it goes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's just it just sucks because it's the only chance that they had. It's the only time that they were in the red zone.
Yeah.
And they missed it. And yeah, I could see Dable being frustrated and stuff like that. But step into the shoes of Daniel Jones and dealing with the mental stack of an entire game, dealing with pressure. And he's just, in his mind, I'm sure he's just like, just get it in the hands of
exactly.
He's going to, like, his first look, and he's like, I just need it because, and we'll talk about Zach
over there too.
But going back to kind of like, that whole feeling of like, I feel like, by this point, I'm going to be getting pressured. Let me just get rid of the ball. It's probably what's subconsciously going into Daniel Jones's head, is that, he just isn't expecting to have any time to throw it. And he didn't have time. He was facing pressure on that play too. The offensive line, once again, broke down, and he didn't really have the time to throw it or the time to read the field, and he missed Waller, and it's that. But it just, it's a cascading effect of all the issues that the Giants have. A bunch of issues that were there last season that seem to be worse, not better, this season. So
actually, on that particular play, he did have a little bit of time there, because they're actually funny. We're talking about it. They're actually replaying it on the screen right now.
Like I said, like he
there was pressure coming
from the pressure.
Yeah,
there was pressure coming toward him, but this was one of the cleaner pockets, if you want to say,
right?
Based on all the shit show that he had to deal with the entire game. You know what I'm saying?
I think he had scrambled just a little bit to his left on that play, and then there were a couple of Giants over there, so it wasn't the worst read. There were two Giants, and then what's that player's name on the Seahawks that was just feasting tonight? Was it Washington or
Witherspoon?
Witherspoon.
Jesus,
the rookie.
He had such a
rookie
game. And that's the other thing too. How is it that we have a game like this against like a team that's full of rookies and backups? They were talking on the broadcast about how like the Seahawks are showing their depth because they're using the second and third stringers. And they're all making plays. Like, how do you take 11 sacks, with backups and rookies? How does that happen?
Well, we did mention, right, in our talks before, we did mention that depth was going to be a problem for the Giants, going into the season. And it's clear now that, you lost two other guys today. You lost, I believe it was Bellinger and somebody else. I can't remember who it was. But injuries are starting to become a problem for the Giants also. And, especially on that line. JMS. Yeah, JMS was out. Listen, he was probably your best player on the line outside of Andrew Thomas. Now you take him out. There's where depth is going to be a problem for the Giants,
Yeah.
So, listen, you look at this team, and they've been outscored 77-9 in the first half this season.
Isn't it
I mean,
80-9 at this point?
no, I think it was 63, and
was
then they added the
84.
extra touchdown or whatever. So
There's one other area that makes the Giants look like such a not even a rookie team, not even a college team, like a high school team, and it's
Pop Warner?
immaturity. You know, aside from like all like the terrible performances that we saw tonight, the really really boneheaded, you know, penalties that we dealt with in this game, all of that kills us. You know, if you can't go in there and like show your frustration the way they did and have some of these penalties. And I forgot who I saw. Who was it that got? It was late in the game. Got a it was a personal foul, I think, after the play. Who then on the sideline is joking and laughing and smiling, almost like, yeah, I did that. And it's like, man, what are you doing here, man? Like they like, you know, if you're gonna show that kind of immaturity, you shouldn't be playing professional football.
yeah,
You know, and none of that helps. So again, and this to me goes to Dable. Like, what are you doing to rein in these players?
Yeah, this was a big game for the Giants this week. It was imperative for them to get this win because now you've lost to three potential playoff teams in your conference. You've already lost to Dallas, you lost to San Francisco, you lost to Seattle. So now these are teams that you're going to be looking from the bottom up. Never mind the fact that you're 1-3 and you've got Miami and Buffalo coming in the next
and
2
the
weeks.
Commanders who are looking freaking awesome.
You know, it's not going to be easy sledding for the Giants going forward.
By the time that we face you guys, we're probably going to be 1-6.
Oof, that would be terrible.
Might be 2-5.
Because
I mean, who are we going to be? The Commanders are our only shot, but I mean, I hope that by the time that we face the Commanders, we have Andrew Thomas, JMS, and Saquon back. Maybe we'll have like, you know, a decent, you know, I can't even say. See, that's the thing. Saying the word a decent football team on the field sounds weird based on the performances that we've seen so far. I don't know that having JMS or Saquon back or Andrew Thomas back is going to automatically fix all our woes.
Yeah.
Because, you know, again, going to the defense, that tackling looks atrocious. And yes, you know, it's something that you shouldn't have to practice. You shouldn't have to be working on that. But if you're a defensive coordinator and if you're the head coach table and you're seeing that this is an issue now in week 4, it's still an issue. You go back and you've got to fix that. You can't just look at that as a problem and be like, all right, we'll do better next week.
You can't fix that. Now, hold on.
I don't know.
Jose,
with tough love, with like, the season's lost anyway.
I'm gonna throw it to Jose, but truthfully, and Jose, maybe you can answer this question.
Well, look, I mean,
how
the
do
thing
you fix
is,
this?
Because you can't.
I don't
fix this.
I think it's more of a talent issue. You know, yes, coaching is going to be a factor in here, but you know, I think we're starting to see that wide receiving group, with all the enthusiasm that everybody had for that group, is just not good enough. I mean, they're just not getting open. And I think one of the things that they showed, and I'm going to throw it to you right after this, Jose. One of the things that they showed which was very eye-opening, is that second interception where you clearly saw that DJ wanted to throw the ball, but he couldn't. One, because there was a defender coming right down the throwing lane that he was going to throw it. But then two, Paris Campbell was not open yet. And they're struggling to get those guys open. So by the time that he threw it, he naturally threw it over his head, which caused the interception. You can clearly see it, especially from the back view, that he was ready to throw it at a point. But those two things were true at that moment, and he couldn't. And he had to hold it longer. And that precipitated him overthrowing Paris Campbell. So, I mean, Jose, how do we fix this?
I mean, I was going to say, like, you really can't fix this unless you bench every player that missed the tackle egregiously tonight, and that was almost the entire Jets defense. That's not something you can teach.
Giants defense.
Sorry, I'm pissed off about both teams, and the Jets defense has its own issues that we'll talk about later. Not nearly as egregious, but I mean, tackling is not something that is teachable at this point. I mean, you played, flag football, touch football. I played tackle football. I had to block Walter a couple of times because nobody else could, in like a couple of pickup games that we played. And I was always the guy like that was tackling the biggest people. When I was in high school, I was about 150 pounds soaking wet. And I was tackling the guy that was about 250 pounds. Nobody else could. And he dragged me for about a yard before I brought him down. But you know how I did that? By wrapping people up. You shoot from the hip or you shoot your guns. Like, I think that's like one of the famous things that they say about tackling. You can't tackle that poorly where they were just doing these push tackles kind of for half the damn game. They were keeping the running back standing up on a couple of plays where he was trying to get away by pushing the running back with their hands, almost like they were trying to block, I guess, rather than tackle. If you don't wrap the guy, like, I don't give a crap how hard you hit him. Like, he might be able to stumble around and get up. And they were doing that all game. The Seahawks were doing that all game to the Giants. And that was kind of something that you can't fix, I think. Again, you bench everybody that missed a tackle.
It's going to be tough for the Giants going forward. It really is, and they have to find a way to not only solidify that offensive line, they have to find a way to unlock both Jalen Hyatt and Darren Waller, because those are probably your two best receiving options on that team. They got no play today. And again, it could be a fact that, DJ is running for his life, but you got to find a way to get the ball to your best players, whether they're short passes, which DJ kind of lived on. I think he only had 2 passes that went further than 10 yards today. Something has to change for this team.
I think, it was only 2 passes. The second one came in the fourth quarter, which is insane.
You can't play like that.
Yeah, but they can't. They can't have free. They can't have receivers don't have enough time to get free and get open if there just isn't any time for Daniel Jones to get rid of the ball.
Yeah, but again,
this I think all comes down to the offensive line, and I understand that the offensive line is going to collapse. Every single offensive line is going to collapse here and there. You can't expect every offensive line to be 100% throughout every single game, but even 50% of the time will give the receivers, give Waller and Hyatt and others a chance to open up, a chance to create the threats that'll make the defense have to think about them. But if the defense of the secondary doesn't even have to think about these receivers getting open because they're the front line is doing such a good job, breaking through and sacking and pressuring and forcing bad decisions. When does the defense get to even see any of these routes from Hyatt and Waller to start playing the guessing game, start playing the chess game between defensive and offensive coordinators on opposing teams?
Yeah. Before we move on to the Jet game, I think Jose has a one quick point to make, right?
Yeah, we're both a little confused about what the hell happened in these last 2 games. Over the last couple of nights. My last, I guess my question and also my point to the two of you is, like, as far as the blocking goes, the point, first off, is that there were a couple of times where I saw clearly missed adjustments. And I feel like, obviously a lot of that is the responsibility of the quarterback. Maybe where they're failing Daniel Jones as coaches is coaching him up on the adjustments that he needs to be making on the offensive line. Because there were a couple of instances where you saw the whoever was the tight end on a particular play lined up against the defense and just running a route when somebody was clearly lined up, like showing blitz. Like, you got to make an adjustment there. You have to do something. You have to tell the offensive lineman to, like, make an adjustment, or you have to tell the tight end to maybe, like, bump and, like, flash off in an out route or something like that to give you somewhere to throw on the blitz.
Communication.
So something is going wrong there as well, I think. It's not just on the offensive line, the 5 guys that are blocking there. It's like whoever is really getting Daniel Jones, like, zoned in on that communication, and whoever's creating that communication between him and the line, somewhere there's also a breakdown, I think, that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
And I guess my question is how you feel about that, mostly Walter more so because you know a little bit more about this, but also Gabe. Quickly.
There has to be clear communication, and you know what? Part of that does fall on the quarterback because the quarterback is the guy that's looking over the field, and he's shouting out assignments, and changing plays at the line. So part of that does fall on DJ. Part of it does fall on the center. The fact that JMS wasn't there, your normal center, that creates communication issues because you know what? Being a part of the line, you have to have familiarity and how the guy next to you plays, and if it's not a thing where you can just drop a guy in there and, expect that the team is going to work flawlessly. And the fact that unfortunately the Giants have been rotating these offensive line in and out this year because of either injury or, not playing well and things of that nature is not helping the case. Now, DJ also has to be able to go up to the line and say, you know what, I recognize that there's a blitz coming from the right side or from the A gap, and you've got to adjust accordingly. Now, whether he's doing that or not, I honestly, I haven't looked at it that deep, but clearly there's got to be better communication in picking up those blitz packages when they're coming through,
Yeah, I mean, I agree that definitely has to be better communication. I do think that Daniel Jones generally does do a decent job of trying to communicate what he sees out there to the line.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a matter of the line being able to pick it up. Like, it's going in one ear and out the other. I don't know. I mean, I certainly see, Daniel Jones, pointing and yelling like here and there and that stuff, and there's just like nothing's happening. But then again, like there's the mental stack, part of it too, where, I think that this is a game where Daniel Jones was kind of going through the motions, but I feel like he was checked out after sack number 6 or 7.
Yeah.
I think after a certain amount of time, of abuse, it's hard to ask your quarterback or anybody in any position to just like, hey, just suck it up, forget about it, and go out there and play like an all-star. I don't know. Let me ask you guys, what quarterback, looking at the game exactly how it was played today, by the offensive line and everything, how many quarterbacks do you think that could have, played played a game who could have won the game today?
Well,
about maybe
this
one.
This is not.
I think only Mahomes.
Ideal.
I feel like Mahomes is probably the only one that could probably run around and get free enough to make a play.
But I take a look at the situation in Houston with C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud, that is not a very good team, and he's still getting it done. So there are ways you can scheme this up. I'm not saying it's ideal. I'm not saying that every quarterback can do it, but it can be done. And I think that's the frustrating part, is because you know what? Yes, there are issues here, but you can scheme up ways to kind of free, whether you go into, 13 personnel or whatever and bring in 2 tight ends, 1 running back. There are ways you can scheme this up to give your quarterback time, designed rollouts, things of that nature. So, it's difficult, but it can be done,
And that goes again to the coaching, I think.
Yeah.
Some of those run plays were for DJ were poorly designed.
So not to add salt to the wound, but the next opponent for the Giants is the Dolphins, and they're going to be playing in Miami. And the only reason why I bring this up, and this is an eye-opening statistic here, the Dolphins at this point of the season are averaging 520 total yards a game. That's what the Giants have coming up for them next. So,
to be fair, that's a padded record from that one 70 burger game.
I
know.
Putting it down.
Can I throw the Giants a little bit of a bone here?
No. Hey,
listen. They don't deserve a bone. You're right. They don't deserve it.
This
Dolphins
is tailor-made for the Giants to shock the world, right?
Dolphins defense is not very good.
Exactly.
So but I also think do something against that defense. Hopefully, they won't be under assault.
I don't know. I don't know, to be honest with you, like if you consider I actually expected the Dolphins to not play that well this past weekend, because when you have a game as big as they had, with the 70-point game against the Broncos the previous week, that's it's like the Super Bowl hangover, right? When the Super Bowl team comes in the next year, they're hung over on the fact that they've won, and and to them, like to the Dolphins, this is almost like their big, Super Bowl performance almost, with the amount of like hoopla that was surrounding their performance and all that. So I expected them to maybe come in a little bit kind of feeling themselves, maybe being a little bit lazy early on, and then they ended up losing the game. Now they're going to come in well, we're going to go over there. And for them, it's like, all right, well, we need a bounce back game. And this is the team to bounce back with. So
the Dolphins also did play a better team last week, because 2 of the 3 opponents that they had prior to that was the Broncos and was the Patriots, and those 2 teams are shit shows of the NFL. So you can pad your stats against those teams also. Anyway, let's move on to the Jets. Right? Yeah, and they did play the Chargers the first week of the season.
That was a tough game.
But let's move on to the Jets, because I think the Jets.
We had a Super Bowl game of their own last night.
Was how can I say this? It was a surprising game, but not completely unexpected.
Yeah.
At least on one side of the ball,
Well,
I think
that. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? Because the game was so unexpected.
Clarify.
Well, no, I fully expected that the defense was going to show up. I thought the defense was going to play well. They played 40% of their game in man coverage, which is where the Jets excel. And to be quite honest, Mahomes is a great quarterback, but their wide receivers are nothing to write home about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, a lot of new
so I felt that. Yeah, I felt that the defense was going to play well. The surprise came from Zach Wilson, and I'm gonna start this thing off, because there's a couple of things that I wanna put out there for you guys, and I want you guys to react to that. First of all, I have to give kudos to Zach Wilson, because that was probably the worst week that an NFL player could endure. I mean, literally, you had not only the fan base killing you, you had the legendary Joe Namath throwing you under the bus. You had not only the local media, but the national media calling for your head. I gotta say, a lot of people would just crawl up into a ball and just fade away into the limelight. And I gotta give it to Zach. I mean, he really kind of shut the noise down and played the game of his life.
It's funny. There's one person out of all the people in the media, because literally everyone in the media was killing them, including us. We are technically part of the media. I personally was I think one quarter in, I was like, he's not him, and then he showed out in the next 3, and he changed my mind. But one of the very, 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 very few media personnel that was giving him some credit before this game, Tiki Barber.
Oh, really?
Walt's favorite.
Well, there was another guy also, Dan Orlovsky, that was really singing the praises of Zach Wilson. But I did not know that Tiki Barber, and I listened to Tiki Barber today. And Tiki Barber was speaking about the comments that Rodney Harrison made after the game, which really was infuriating and uncalled for. But what do you expect? Rodney Harrison is a Patriot, right? So
absolutely.
Kind of douchey reporting there by Rodney Harrison. And
kind
Tiki,
of
Tiki did stand
all
up
of
for
his
him.
own peers.
Tiki did stand up for him, so kudos to that for that. But yeah, Zach Wilson had the worst week of his life, and he responded with his best game. So kudos to that. The other thing I want to talk about is that defense, and that defense has to find a way to start these games better, because they put Zach into a 17-0. again, another credit to Zach, because 17-0, any other team would kind of just say, oh, well, on to the next, right? And that team fought back. Zach fought back. He was throwing dots all day. But that defense really, you know, to give up 200 yards rushing for the game. And we're going to talk about some of the referee calls, but that the last 7 minutes of the game, you know, you can say all you want about the referee calls, but that defense couldn't stop the Chiefs and get them off the field also.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
to echo Tiki real quick, and I definitely want to hear Jose's thoughts, but to echo Tiki, you know, referees don't decide games. They definitely contribute to some decisions, but they aren't the decision makers. You know, you got 4 quarters to play, so.
Yeah, but it's kind of difficult when those kind of plays come with 2 minutes left in the game.
Yeah.
You don't have much time to recover off of that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Jose, what do you think about the game?
So I generally don't like to do this in everyday life because it's impolite to do so. But I am going to do this on this show and say I told you so. Because last year, I was the first person to give up on Zach Wilson when we needed to. And you were defending him last year, if you remember.
Yes, I was.
For a little bit too long. Last year, he needed to be benched earlier because last year was his second season. And it just wasn't coming together for the kid. That's when you bench him, you coach him, and you bring him back in. It's early on in his career. You're not going to lose that much of his kind of.
I will admit that I am a Zach truther, so I'll put that out there.
But this year, I said don't give up on the kid yet for a lot of reasons, for a variety of reasons, being like I said, the coaching a little bit, the general manager not going out there and getting a clear somebody else when Aaron Rodgers went down. And really because, this was like kind of the end of the road for Zach Wilson. There was really no other path when you didn't sign anybody else, when you just signed Trevor Siemian. There was no other path for him other than like getting through this game, or at least getting through part of this game, seeing if he could be competent in part of this game. And if he couldn't, then you had a reason to put Boyle in. And then next week you gave him his last chance. That's kind of it, right? And next week could be one of his last chances too. We'll see. You know, if he does really badly against the Broncos,
yeah, he's on a short leash.
Yeah, right.
Definitely.
But and with the defense, at least this part is shorter. But so far this season, they've been playing to a championship level for about 3.5 quarters of every game, or 3 quarters of every game, and playing at a very average level for a part of it. And that was the first quarter last night when the Chiefs just got out to that crazy 17-0 lead and everybody turned off the game because there was nothing to see but fucking Taylor Swift. And no NFL fan cares.
27 million people did.
27 million people did. I get, well, yeah, you know what? No NFL fan cares.
Right, exactly.
No NFL fan cares.
So,
but, yeah, at that point, the defense just wasn't doing well early in the game, and they were getting crushed by the running game. They were getting crushed by bootlegs, getting crushed by all kinds of plays early on. And then we got to where we got for the rest of the game, basically. And we'll talk about that. Right?
You know, it's funny because right after the game, I was in shock. I was in shock through the game. I was in shock after the second quarter. I couldn't believe my eyes. I was honestly still waiting. I was waiting for Zach to mess it all up, and you know, we can get to the final quarter in a bit, but you know, for all intents and purposes, yes, he had the best game of his life, and you know, against one of the best quarterbacks in the game, if not the best quarterback in the game right now. He outperformed Mahomes in a way that no other quarterback in Mahomes' entire career, college games included, has ever been outperformed. But that being said, you know, now that like I've had like a whole day to kind of process, kind of come down from the high of the game and all that stuff, looking back at some of the mistakes that did end up costing the game, on the Jets side and the officiating side, you know, one thing still holds true, that you can't evaluate a quarterback off of one game. Just like, you know, and for that reason, I'm still not sold on Zach, and I don't think anybody should be sold on Zach. I
No,
think
not at all.
what you need, he needs to put this kind of performance on.
He needs to stack
he needs to stack
games,
them,
two out of every three at least,
just to kind of have a little bit more faith in him, But if he can't play like this on a regular basis, and or perform like this, and on top of that, to be honest, and you guys might fight me on this because you guys have already heard my comments through our text messages and stuff like this. I would like to see him perform like this against a quarterback and a team that's not making as many errors and mistakes as Mahomes and the Chiefs did in this game. If he can play like this, and clean some things up, then it's like, okay, now you do have something special. But to be honest and to be fair, I said it already too before in our chats that maybe this is the first time that we get a chance to see what exactly Saleh sees in Zach and why he keeps defending him so much. And to be fair, to be honest, good for Saleh, good for Zach, to kind of show everybody out, because last week we weren't just killing Zach, we were killing Saleh for his comments, we were killing Saleh for how he was defending Zach so much. And if Zach didn't play like this, then those words would even ring even truer. But I feel like Zach too, went out there and when everybody else was hating on Zach and Saleh wasn't, Zach was like, you know what, coach, I got your back. And that's what I love.
Here's the thing that's very frustrating about that comment that you just said, where you know what, Saleh saw something in Zach. Like I said, this past week, I had a chance to review his film in college, and everything that he did in that game was similar to the stuff that he did in college.
Yep.
They had a blueprint on how to play Zach, and why did it take this long for that to happen? Because you look at Zach is a guy that has really, really elite level arm talent. His arm is not the issue. The kid has mobility. The kid can run. He has the ability to escape the pocket. Why weren't you doing those type of things before? That's the thing that drives me nuts, because I've been screaming about this for the last couple of weeks. You guys know this, right? You got to design a game plan around Zach and his strengths, which is rolling out to the right. You know what I'm saying? Using his legs to move that pocket, hit those short throws, take those deep shots. Some of those throws that he had were elite throws. The one to Wilson where he just missed it, that was an incredible throw. Now, yes, he threw it over by maybe 6 inches. That was a perfect throw, though.
That's true.
That's the thing that drives me nuts about this team and this coaching staff, and last year's coaching staff especially, because you have tape of what Zach is, but yet you didn't plot a game plan around that.
Well, that's true, and like what I would say in counter to that is, seeing what he did in college against college players is completely different from doing that at the NFL level. And
I agree with that 100%.
Right, and when I say, what Saleh sees, I'm talking about what he sees on the practice field, because he preaches that. We see him do it in practice. The teammates, they see him play like this in practice, and he's just not putting it together on the field. So I think
kind of heard different about that also. I've kind of heard different about that also, because a lot of these practices we're not privy to, but the media and the reporters are. Yeah. And a lot of them say this is the best that they have ever seen Zach play. Like, there is nothing in practice that suggests that this is how Zach could be, because Zach has had some rough practices, but Robert Saleh is never going to say that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. But I mean, again, and then to leave the point, from my end, again, there is still like kind of, I call this actually almost kind of like Nathaniel Hackett's preseason with Zach, right? Because he's had to use these first 3 games to still figure out how to unlock Zach, and I think that they just did on Sunday. So I think that that's really the reason. Now it remains to be seen if they utilize him the same way in the coming games.
Hey,
You can't say that you've unlocked them if you don't do the same stuff, the same.
This is what I'm going to tell Hackett.
Everything.
This is what I would say, Hackett. Hackett, you've got a blueprint now. Okay, you've got a roadmap on how to do this. Get it done next week, because you know what? If they go back to run pass next week, then you know what? I'm done. I'm done, because you know what? You've got Zach on tape on what you need to do with him. Get it done next week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing about the tape that you had on Zach Wilson and all of the information that was presented. Well, in college at BYU, Zach Wilson had a lot of time. His offensive line gave him about, I think they said something about 3.5 seconds per play. So that was a big difference with what Zach Wilson saw in college. But in terms of the throws he was making, he still knows how to throw a dart. He still knows how to the sideline on an out route. He still knows how to pick apart man coverage. He still knows how to run a good bootleg. These are all things that he did well in college, really well in college. These are the things that he excelled at. These are the reasons why he was a number 2 pick. So, like, for me, this was this was a validation for Zackett. I'm going to call him Nathaniel Zackett, because
Zackett, I like that.
He saw that. He must have finally looked at the tape on Zach Wilson, because I did a few weeks ago.
Seriously,
he must have looked at it and said, like, well, fuck, why don't we try this instead of whatever we were going to do with Aaron Rodgers, which Aaron would have been great at. Probably we might be 3-1 at this point, but it's not. It's Zach Wilson, and he excelled at those things, and we should have really been working on those a long time ago.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room here. Let's talk about that fourth quarter, because that fourth quarter was probably one of the most frustrating fourth quarters that I can recall in a long time. And I just, why don't you guys start out with that? Because we all know what we're talking about. There's 2 plays that stand out. That was the 3rd and 22 scramble by Patrick Mahomes. And then there was that DPI on Sauce Gardner with, I think, about what was it, like 2.5 minutes left in the game?
Yeah.
All on the same drive, because this drive started with 7 minutes left.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that the Chiefs ended up keeping the ball for the rest of the game.
It's half a quarter. Crazy.
It's insane.
I mean,
what do you guys think about those particular calls? Because that's been the talk of the town for the entire day today.
Well, I mean, at the end of the game, it was unfortunate that he played such a great game, and it kind of ended on a Zach Wilson turnover for the Jets offense. Gabe, I appreciate that you were trying to give him a little bit of love last night and say, like, that really wasn't on him, that botched snap, but it really was, because I was watching the game, the Giants game earlier.
The fact, watching it after the fact, I thought that it wasn't the best snap in the world, but it is on Zach to be paying attention to the ball and not to the
and he said it,
not to the defender in the field yet.
He said exactly what happened in the post game. He was like, I took my eyes off of it and tried to take a quick peek at the defender, which is one of the weaknesses that he was revealed about Zach in college. And he failed on that last play, unfortunately. And I was about to say, like, I saw Daniel Jones, like, in the game earlier today, like, catch a snap that was, like, almost at his shoestring. So, like,
I hit the ground.
It probably did hit the ground, right? Well,
yeah, it did. It did hit the ground.
I mean, there might have been 2 different ones. That was such a rough game that, like, there was probably a bunch of botched snaps. But I mean, it's unfortunate that the offense got its last chance there because of the holding call on or the calls, right? We had the holding call that kind of ended the game. We had the non-holding call on the Chiefs. We had a bevy of, like, kind of crazy calls, and the Jets might have gotten a couple of calls earlier in the game, to be fully honest.
That horse collar?
The horse collar tackle wasn't a horse collar tackle. It probably was a face mask. Okay, and that's the point that a lot of people have been making, which I understand. And that turned the game, but, like, we were talking about this earlier. I think, Walt, you mentioned it. a lot, or maybe Gabe, you mentioned it, talking about how in basketball you talk about like you don't want to let the refs decide the game. It might have been mentioned on television actually. I know I heard this somewhere earlier today.
Oh
In
no,
basketball, you don't want the refs
it was
deciding
Garrett
a
Wilson
game.
himself.
Like,
Garrett Wilson himself was making the comparison that this is like
Sauce
shooting up the
Gardner.
ball and not calling foul until
Yeah.
after you miss. You want to see if you make the ball,
A
make
lot
the
of people
shot,
made the
and then it's like
comparison, I
you
feel
miss
like.
it, so then you're like, oh, foul. You
Yeah.
can't do that. You
Yeah.
call the foul when the foul happens.
Yeah. That was the most egregious thing, though, right? Like, because if there was a holding call, which it probably wasn't, it was really borderline. There was a lot of contact throughout that game, and like Sauce said, he was kind of turning and he tried to pull his hand off the defender rather than hold him. We saw him make the effort to avoid the holding call there because
Right.
I think he saw that the play wasn't going to turn out very well. And then the ref was holding the flag, like pump faked the flag, and then waited for Michael Carter to grab the interception on the Jets defense, and then tossed the flag in there, like almost as if to say, like, hold on, this is not what the outcome was supposed to be of this game. What am I suggesting? I don't know.
You can't anger the Swifties.
To be fair, I didn't see that. If he was holding the flag up already beforehand,
No.
then
He double clutched it out of his pocket.
Yeah, he wasn't holding it up. That's false.
He went to go grab it.
I guess you could make the argument that like he had the intention of pulling his hand was on the flag before the interception was made, and that he just decided to throw it after the interception. So you could make that argument.
That's not a great thing to do.
But that's
not a
indecision right there. That to me,
it is indecision. It is indecision. But going back to Sauce, you know, he was saying like, you know, they didn't target him at all because of the coverage and whatnot. But then none of the officials, you know, called that same kind of, you know, that same kind of style of defending the entire game. That the entire game was being played like that. Sauce was defending that same way. He's like, why did they call it now? And they didn't call it at all throughout the entire game.
I think that's the maddening part. It's the inconsistency, right?
Yeah, right. So like, if you're gonna call that when you first see it, not later when you think it counts or when it doesn't count or whatever it is.
Call it on Jermaine, or call it on the player holding Jermaine Johnson for 15 seconds when Mahomes scrambled for that first down, which wasn't a great play by the Jets, but at the same time, where was Quinnen Williams going? I think, Walter, you mentioned it during the game. He tried to spin around to the other side instead of covering that gap. And Mahomes he flew right through it as soon as he saw that. The defender was being held. He was beating on the offensive lineman, Jermaine Johnson. He was beating on the defender's head, and the ref didn't even see it. It was crazy.
Yeah, and you know, I was watching the post game afterwards, and Bart Scott made a great. He's one of the hosts on that. And he did make a great point on it. And this is something that Jermaine Johnson has to learn because in those situations, offensive linemen, they're taught when you're doing that, you bring the player towards you, right? Because if you have your hands extended, it's very easy for the referee to see that you're holding, right? So his job there at that point is to bring that defensive lineman to him, which cuts down the ability of the ref to see it. So that's a very veteran play on the offensive lineman, the chief offensive lineman, whoever it was. Right. What Jermaine Johnson needs to do in that case is he's got to find a way to try and pull himself back if he needs to flop, if he needs to have his hands up and stuff like that. He needs to sell the play. And Bart was saying that's something that comes with experience. Jermaine Johnson being this is only his second year in the league. So clearly inexperience kind of was part of that play. But you know what? The back judge was literally 5 yards away.
He was right there.
He was standing right there. You got to throw that flag, man. It was
Donovan Smith, the Chiefs player, that was holding, by the way.
There you go. And so kudos on him for really, you know, hiding the fact that he was holding him because clearly he had a handful of things. I think to this point, Jermaine Johnson is still being held.
You could see the jersey move a little bit, on that play.
So, you know, in that case, it's frustrating because, you know what, that right there could have changed the game. You know what I'm saying? And then we're not talking about the sauce holding DPI, right? Because that never happens, you know. But then you go and you're talking about Sauce also because you know what? it's it's one of these things where it's like, you know what, this also impacts the game because that was also a third down play. That's also a play which clearly it flips the field where the Jets now have the ball. You know what I'm saying? So it's very, very frustrating. And, you know, the thing about it is that the Jets never get these type of calls, and it continues. And I like the fact, and this is going to lead into one of what you guys want to talk about next. I like the fact that Salah lost his head on the sideline because I think that's something that needs to be done on his part. You know what I'm saying? He needs to vote. And I love the fact that he got a penalty. I'm all for it. Go for it.
You know what? Just a quick comparison to that. It's funny because going to baseball, I'm a Yankees fan, and I am actually an Aaron Boone fan. As much as people hate him, but like there's so many similarities between Aaron Boone and Robert Saleh. You know, Aaron Boone is a player's coach. He will never throw a single player under the bus. He's always going to defend them in the media. He'll take every single thing on him and on his own versus letting the players take any heat. And he'll go out there and defend his players. He knows he's going to get ejected. He knows that like it's not going to be good, but he needs his players to see him, fighting for them. And it was really good to see. Like Robert, I thought he was going to pop a blood vessel, man. Like that dude,
bro. Let me tell you
his
something.
Cheeks, the lips, the head, everything just swolled up. My man was pissed,
bro. In the post game interview, my man was still red like a tomato.
Yeah,
all you gotta do is just take a pin and that boy would pop.
Like,
you know what I'm saying?
He was just like, "Go ahead, ask the questions. Go ahead."
Yeah, I'm not gonna listen. You can't blame him. You can't blame him.
Yeah,
you know,
you absolutely cannot. You absolutely cannot.
Yeah, Salah was fighting mad at the end of that game, which you haven't really seen him get that emotional before, which was good to see because he has been kind of passive. He is very passive generally as a coach for the most part. He's cursing and he's getting into it a little bit, like trying to be friendly with the players. What's up, dog? Giving them pounds, doing all that good stuff. But like, he can be pretty passive. And it was good to see him get passionate in that game yesterday. So that was really, really nice to see. I guess I want to kind of come back to the O-line for a very, very quick second because I want to give them a little bit of a commendation yesterday. Whatever kind of combination they came up with was something that was really good that they put together pretty well yesterday. Becton has to clean up a lot of those penalties, even though he's playing really, really well at the offensive line. He is committing. What did they say? I think he's committed three penalties in the last 4 games. 3 holding calls, I think, were the penalties. So the offensive line played great yesterday. It was a stark contrast to what the Giants were unfortunately dealing with tonight.
Yeah, pass pro was not the issue yesterday for the Jets. So
no, not at all. But like, kudos to the line for the most part. Kudos to the team for the most part. But we need to get through those 4 quarters and finally put an entire game together.
Real quick, I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is ESPN's photoshopped image of Witherspoon. I don't know if you can see very well, but it's Witherspoon in the kitchen cooking.
I see. Yeah,
I can kind of see it. So
see number 21 in the hot pot.
How can we be this bad? Sorry, we're talking about that. I apologize.
But yeah, that was a good game by the offensive line. And
I do want I want to ask you guys a quick question about the coaching in general. I mean, there was a point where it was a 51-yard field goal kick versus going in for 4th and inches. What do you think was, and I don't know if Salah's actually answered this. I didn't get a chance to see the entire post game. But what do you, first of all, do you think that was a good decision to go for the kick instead of like try to push and get the down, the conversion on 4th down? How do you feel about that decision? Because that ultimately, that missed field goal there, I think was key. If you get the 4th and inches, a couple more drives, a couple more yards, then that field goal kick becomes a little bit easier to make. No.
I will say this, and I think that was early on in the game, right, where they were still trying to come back.
And the second half.
I would have gone. Honestly, I would have done the exact same thing because you want to put points on the board. it would be, in my mind, it would have been, and it's funny because we didn't get the points anyway, right? But I think the way that game was going, if you tried 4th and inches and didn't make it, that would be potentially demoralizing for the team. You want to stack points and say, you know what, we at least we got points on the board. Let's build off of that. So that, in my mind, that I think was the right thing to do.
But then
Because
wasn't the missed field goal also demoralizing then?
no, I know, but there's something different about missing a field goal and not making on a 4th and 1.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? There, because 4th and 1, you're trying to impose your will on the other team, and if you can't do it, then there's a natural letdown to that. With a missed field goal, yes, it's demoralizing, but it's a little bit like, okay, well, the elements maybe had a thing with it. Maybe it was a bad snap. It's kind of a different feel. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
I don't know if there's a good way to explain it.
Yeah.
But
Well, to be specific, it was with 30 seconds left in the half. So there was a little time left on the clock there for Mahomes to try to do something. They intercepted it immediately on like, I think the very next play, actually, at the end of the half. But it was on a 32, I think, from the 32. Yes, I believe it was from 34, from the 34, 52-yard field goal. At that point, you want to try to get the 3 points, I think, because if you miss there and Mahomes gets another field goal even, then you're starting to go down by quite a bit. I mean, you could say either way in that situation. I think you can make the case, I think, a little bit. I think you can make the case you want to be aggressive there, but I don't know. It's a tough call. I think you want to try to get the points, and it's Greg the Leg. I mean, the man can fucking kick field goals. Like, that's the reason why he's on.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, and again, it's after the fact. It doesn't matter now, obviously. It's the 32-yard line. You get the field goal, or you give Patrick Mahomes 30 seconds to make something happen. He could have still made something happen. Thankfully, you guys got the interception, even though you guys didn't get the field goal. But I would have liked to have seen the aggression going into the half of, like, because I feel like that sends the message that you're going for it no matter how bad it's going. And if you had gotten that first down, now you end the quarter. Now you just you bring the clock all the way down to 3 seconds, and then you kick the field goal a little bit closer anyway. So I just think that I think that obviously it wasn't consequential anyway, so it doesn't matter. It wasn't consequential in the sense because of the interception.
It was consequential.
The 3 points could have made a difference. Or the 7.
What I mean is, it didn't end up. It could have been worse, right? Not scoring the field goal and then Mahomes getting another field goal. It could have been worse.
I think you take that chance if you're a little bit closer, given the amount of time that was left on the field, also on the clock.
Yeah,
you're at
almost that extra 9 yards from the 25-yard set from a kickoff or a punt. Almost feels like where you're getting into slightly dangerous territory with Pat Mahomes in 30 seconds. And I know if you get the points, I get it. But if you get the field goal, at least you get some points before he gets some more points. And it was 20-12 at that point.
Yeah.
So there was some hope, maybe. Yeah. I get your point, though.
Well, either way. Anyway, who do you guys got next week? I'm kind of checked out now.
Broncos.
I kind of almost don't care about the season anymore. So
we've got the Broncos at the.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot.
Stadium formerly known as Maha Stadium. I think it's Envision Field or something like that. I don't know. I can't. There used to be a time where you could just say, hey, they're in Buffalo. Oh, that's Rich Stadium. Oh, you're down in Miami. Oh, that's I forget what it was. Now with all these corporate deals that they have to like Highmark Stadium, Aramark Stadium, the Hard Rock Stadium down in Miami, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's difficult but whatever. They're going to Denver. In my mind, Jets got to win that game. Jets
have to win it pretty handily. Where Zach Wilson has to do very well.
I mean, this is
I wouldn't even say Zach Wilson has to have like a spectacular game. I think he has to have a normal quarterback game, but I believe that the Jets have to win this game.
Yeah. It's funny because I almost feel like the Jets are like 1 week behind where the Giants are as far as like what the game's
Despair.
meanings go, right? Because this game was meaningful, I think, because it was like everybody's putting Geno over Jones, so it's like Daniel Jones has to win this game. The Giants have to win this game because it's almost a must win because of how the season's been going. But Daniel
Right.
Jones had to win this game, because of the comparisons to Geno and who's better and whatnot and so on and so forth. Same thing now with you guys in the Broncos a week later. Where like you guys as a team need to win this game, but because of the whole Zach Wilson, Russell Wilson thing, and all that going on, Zach has to win this game too. So um, it's just
This is Zach's opportunity to shit on Rodney Harrison's comments.
that dude should be fired.
I'm telling you, I can't understand how.
That was
kudos to Chris Jones for not being baited into that. Because that was clearly what he was trying to do. He was trying to get Chris Jones to say a comment so that he could blow up on social media and whatnot.
Yeah, it could have been one thing if like he had said it once, try to bait him once, but Chris Jones defended him, and then he went in there and like doubled down on how bad he thinks Zach Wilson is and how bad he thinks Chris Jones should think that Zach Wilson is.
Yeah, like at first he was like,
fuck that guy.
How clearly he's trash, right? That was the first comment. Right. And you saw Chris Jones, he was kind of taken aback at that, right? And then afterwards, Chris Jones was making a case, this kid is special. And he was like, wait a second, did you just call Zach Wilson special? Because he's not, And the really interesting thing that I find is that Zach Wilson, for some reason, has become the darling of the NFL because you have Chris Jones defending him. William Gay after the game went up to Zach Wilson and apologized for his comments earlier before. That was the guy that we were talking about, right? And I don't know if you've seen this, but Micah Parsons on his podcast went out of his way to talk about Zach Wilson and how badly he's being treated and how you got to let this kid play and he's got some talent, you got to let him do his thing. So I find that interesting.
Yeah, I think this is a must win for the Jets this week. I mean, they have to win because they have Philadelphia coming up after that.
Oh yeah,
they have the Giants coming up after that, who might be in a dire situation at that point and might have like really a must win game at that point. And then the Chargers, Vegas, Buffalo, and Miami until we get to Atlanta and maybe get a little bit over it. So, yeah, it's looking pretty rough on the schedule coming up next week. But I think the Jets will pull this out. I hope it's not a rough game. I hope it's a decisive victory.
Yeah, we'll see.
As far as the Giants go, I mean, y'all got Miami next week. So it goes...
I mean, hey, that's what we were saying about the Jets and the Chiefs, right? We're like, well, you guys got the Chiefs next week. Maybe we do something.
Yeah, well listen,
this is a show me game for the world, team.
Right?
This is a show me game for the offensive line, a little bit for Daniel Jones. Hopefully, Saquon Barkley will be back and he can give the offense a little boost.
But, as bad as the Jets have been, they've had two of the most entertaining primetime games this season so far. So,
and we've had two of the most unwatchable games this season so far. Between the 40-0 opener and then this game tonight, those are two of the worst football games, bar none, that I have ever seen.
It's like I said, the Giants right now really have had only really 2 good quarters of football this year. So it's something that they need to work on. But hopefully they'll do better with Miami. Miami doesn't have a great defense, even though all their fans believe that they do, but whatever. Anyway, I think we'll end it on that note. Miserable Monday, hasn't been great. The New York football season hasn't been great this year, but you know what? Hopefully things turn around.
The writer's strike is over, right? So can we get a new script writer?
Yeah, I think we do. And please, no more Swifties. Please, no more Swifties.
God, that's so tired.
That was
Anyway.
just horrendous.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you all for watching the Blue versus Green show. We'll be back next week to discuss what happens in Denver and Miami, and hopefully it'll be a much funner and happier podcast than this one, because we were talking about 2 losses today. Anyway, again, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification button, and until next week, go Jets!
Go Giants.
Go Giants. Later, people.
Peace.